Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Jennifer, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Let's jump straight into it. What's the story, Jennifer? What got you into consulting?
Oh boy. Well, let's see. I worked in corporate America for about 10 years in supply chain. I went to school for industrial engineering, so immediately came out into the supply chain world, more specifically in consumer products. And I was planning production on machines in the manufacturing facilities, as well as buying products, consumer products from all over the world and bring it into the United States. After about 10 years of that and a little bit of a trajectory growth in corporate America, I wanted to go out on my own because I started seeing a little bit of a pattern when it comes to change agents and actually being able to optimize and improve and save on costs and save in time and productivity, that once an activity was done, sometimes your role was eliminated. So I wanted to go out on my own to be able to work with those companies and clients that really truly embrace a continuous improvement culture as well as a change management culture.
So, I like it. What's the number one problem that you solve now? What is it that you help companies achieve exactly?
Yeah, so we help companies achieve a successful transformation. Transformations meaning it can be a new system, modernizing technology, new business process. There could be a change in the business model, i.e., COVID happening or some kind of a big outbreak happening in the world where you're forced to change how you are doing things. So our objective is to efficiently and effectively help those leaders transition through a hardship. And usually with transformations, it is a hardship because the company is being overhauled and turned upside down. And they need a lot of support during that time.
Who is it that you help specifically, Jennifer, with those circumstances and outbreaks?
Yeah, so the clients we support are typically C-suite, VP, and director levels in supply chain or operations, and sometimes IT.
And do you have it's interesting. It's interesting. So in IT, you mean the departments or the industry specifically?
The IT department. So it could be the
Okay.
VP over supply chain technology or manufacturing technology.
And do you have a specific industry that you help? I mean, I suspect an industry where supply chain will be a key factor, obviously. But like, do you have a specific industry, specific niche, company size? Like, how do you decide who you work with?
Yeah, so we typically work with consumer products. That's been where my background started, as I mentioned. Consumer products, food and bev, they're your typical manufacturers that we have around the globe, as well as some of the professional services industries. We've worked with some law firms as well as financial services firms as well.
That's interesting. So, I mean, completely out of curiosity and for my own culture here, what supply chain problem do professional services firm have to solve exactly? Or is it more like business in general in those cases?
Yeah, it's more like business. So we're working to improve the operational efficiency in the companies. Most of the time, like I mentioned, you see it in supply chain more because it's more at a bigger scale. But for, say, a law firm, they could be looking at modernizing their technology. They're trying to make things more efficient when it comes to redundant processes. And so implementing new technology may be the way to go to remove all of the manual complexity that they're doing every day.
That's okay. What's the benefit of this? Like, talk to me like I'm the VP or the CEO or, the person in charge of hiring you guys potentially. What's the benefit of all this? Like, solving this problem allows us to be what?
Okay. So yeah, a lot of times VPs have an issue where they need to update the technology. Believe it or not, in supply chain and manufacturing, there's a lot of old technology. Think about AS400. That still exists with the black and green screens. So when you're looking at modernizing technology, usually there's a goal or an objective being made to increase throughput. If I'm over a warehouse and I need to get out, 30,000 cartons in a week versus 10,000 in a week, how am I going to be successful at doing that? So of course there's an increase, maybe in efficiency around people. What are my folks doing? Do I need to move them around in different areas and packing and shipping, or inspection, right, to get the product through faster so we can get it packed faster in a warehouse? Also for them, the main benefit is, I would say, the status, reputation, and credibility of being able to turn around an inefficiency of a significant magnitude that is a detriment to the company at the time. So if we're looking for specific cost savings in operations, as I mentioned, me moving around my folks, I don't really know what the right answer is to do that. I have to look at their skill sets, their capabilities. I have to look at, can the software that we're utilizing, is it effective enough for where we're going? So when you start adding on and compounding the inefficiency, it starts to add up. And when you're able to tell the story of how you can turn things around and generate the cost savings in an environment of a major warehouse, like a retailer per se, then that's great status, reputation, career advancement for that VP.
Okay, that's super clear. So thanks for this, Jennifer. I just wanted to make sure like we had proper context. That's interesting. So what's the number one way you've been marketing this? Like, you want to get in touch with the C-suite, the VP, the directors of like supply chain IT within, like, not specifically an industry in particular, but food and bev, FMCGs, professional services potentially. How do you market? How do you brand? How do you get new leads through, I mean, not through the door, but in front of the door, let's say?
Yeah, so for us, it's been, I would say the number one way has been word of mouth and referrals. I've learned we've been in business now going almost 9 years. So that's been the most effective way. Remember, I said I was in corporate before, so I was able to establish a pretty significant network. I've also moved around for my career 4 times, my husband and I. So every time we moved, we kind of generated a little pocket of a network somewhere. But for new leads, it's still been referrals. We hit the pavement with networking. We go to networking events. We partner with different organizations that is in our profession to get our word out as well, conferences, as well as thought leadership on LinkedIn. We may write, post articles, do podcasts like we're doing now, as well as our newsletter. So there's been a different arenas of areas, but the number one way is still referrals for management consultants.
How do you make the most out of this? Because most of the people I talk to who only rely on referrals, and by the way, for me, relying on referrals means that you're doing a fantastic job because people are referring you, right? And if that allows you to get the next business, yeah, literally the next project and the next project, where it becomes interesting is when one project turns into either another one that is worth more, or one client's turn into 2. And like, your service is so good that it brings more deals in. I have my opinions and thoughts about relying only on referrals, which I share often on the podcast, so I'm not going to hear. But it's interesting that 9 years, I see you have a team of like 6, 7 people in total, Jennifer. Can you tell us how you make the most out of those referrals? How do you make them happen? Do you have any specific processes? Like, how can people learn from you to get more business like this?
Yeah. And again, we don't just rely on the referrals. Like I mentioned, all those other ways that we generate like awareness and excitement. But the end goal is to lead to that buyer that is going to sign us a check. That's the end goal. So if they're not the right buyer, I mean, we don't spend a lot of time with that person, or we figure out how to get to the buyer as quickly as possible. But for us, I would say, how do we continuously be successful at it is learning to add value. And that has changed over the years that we've been in business, right? I mentioned like business models change and you have black swan events. So what was important to a company back in 2015 obviously is not important as it is in 2026. Like right now, optimization is of key importance to leaders in those areas. How do I do more with less? Right. So it's all about the optimization. And for us, if we can figure out ways to add value, whether it's little one pagers or case studies of, hey, this is how we've solved this before, or hey, we have a great partner that can help turn all of this around that, we've worked with in the past. Partnerships are great as well, because we can't do it all on our own. I don't have a bench of, 20 consultants that I can lean on to make that happen. So partnering with the right organizations or other consulting firms have been key for us to increase our capability and leverage.
So let's lean into this, because I think that's a good way for B2B coaching and consulting firms to start thinking about acquisition and developing biz dev, basically. Most of the time, they don't feel really comfortable going hardcore with a pure acquisition channel and thinking like Google Ads or content, like doing their own content or even dancing on TikTok. That may work. But sometimes the compromise, the in-between of building a network of referral partner could be both comfortable because it's still leaning in this referral playbook, but just like putting it on steroids and allowing you to get more referrals, more business coming through. So for you, Jennifer, how have you guys thought about and implemented this partnership model, this engaging with other consultants so that you can bring them business and they bring you business? How are you organizing all this, and how do you make sure it serves the business purpose?
Yeah, when we first started out doing this, and consultants, independent consultants and consulting firms would reach out to us, it's different from how we do things now. There has to be a true 50-50 partnership and somewhat of an attitude of what's in it for me, versus it being one-sided and just feeling a need that someone has at the time. So what that looks like is really building a relationship with that independent consultant or that consulting firm over time to see how we can leverage each other. It's not something where it's just one-time call. Hey, can we do business? Yep, let's do it. It doesn't happen that way, because you really need to vet the person or their team to see if it's going to be a marriage that you want to enter into. And I say that cautiously because we have been burned in the past. So it's not that easy, like you said, to just take on that type of model. You really do have to have a good vetting process. Honestly, it's just like we take our clients through a vendor selection process. Like you want to interview or have different opinions and perceptions, and even research with their clients. Like, have they been a good partner to work with? Have they been great at delivery? Have they been good in response? Believe it or not, a lot of our clients, we get that feedback from them, even with our partners as well, that just accountability, follow up, follow through, and response are key for what clients look for. And if you're not capable of handling that, or we get feedback that that's not being done, then we won't partner with those folks.
How do you check for that? How do you check for the green flags and red flags, I would say, in who to partner with? Because when you're thinking about it, like, yeah, sure, if you have business to send me, like, send it away. It's hard to say no when it comes to getting new business in. So, how do you check for the right criterias and for the wrong ones, Jennifer?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's similar to like we take a client through a vendor selection process, right? There's specific questions that we're asking to understand, their capability, their follow through, their response. We may interview their own clients or ask for some feedback from their own clients to really understand how they think and how they act in our space. Because I mentioned we've been burned before, so that's why we put these guardrails in place to stop that from happening. But we always walk them an open call right with someone, because you don't know at the time what it could lead to. But yeah, after we put those checks and balances in place, if it doesn't seem like it's going to be a fit, then we walk away. It's better to walk away than to get married to someone or establish that type of relationship and then you get burned later on. Been there, done that, don't want to do it again.
Professionally or personally, Jennifer? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Professionally.
No, I like the analogy, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes me think a bit about how we and I decided to partner up with Hussam, my co-founder. And he was a friend and a best friend and someone we did, dipping the toe in by launching a podcast first, and then we started the business together, because it's not a decision you want to take lightly. And it's my business partner, so obviously we are 50-50, but I think the same way when it comes to partnering with people outside of the business, but that we would associate our image with for the best and the worst, as we say. How do you move from this? So from the content, from the referrals, from the partnership model to a signed deal, Jennifer? Can you walk us through how you, maybe thinking about the funnel, go from that, so this general awareness that you create with the content, those referrals that you get in, to a conversation, a sales conversation, an SOW, a letter of engagement? How do you think about all this and proceed?
Yeah, so we look at it from a whole client or customer journey standpoint, right? So everything we do is marketing. We may not want to admit it, but it is. How your tone, the way you dress, your firm handshakes if you're meeting in person, your ability to reflect and be direct in your voice and your tone when you're speaking with someone. So for us, we come out the gate swinging. we want that perception to be known that this is how the MJW Group operates. Take it or leave it. Very direct, very to the point. So for us, starting with a intro call, if we're introduced to someone, obviously we'll have correspondence back and forth via email, maybe a quick phone call before we actually sit down and have that real face-to-face in-person contact or call. So for us, we like to tell our clients we diagnose first, and then we provide a remedy or prescribe. So it's just like when you go to a doctor, right? Your doctor is asking you, what are your symptoms? How can I help you? What are you facing today? And you start rambling off all these symptoms, and they start asking you follow-up questions. How often has this been happening? Is it happening in the nighttime? Is it happening when you eat certain foods, right? We take that same approach when we're talking with someone initially. I don't want to solve their world problems. And a lot of times, people may just, I like to call it throw up on you, because they've been facing this issue so long that they don't have anybody else to talk through with it. So we ask those good follow through questions as far as, how long have you been facing this? What have you tried before? If it's an issue in the supply chain that didn't work, or there's an inefficiency happening with the technology that isn't working, are you talking with your software vendors? Do you have a cadence that you're working with your supplier if you're facing supplier quality issues, right? So we try to diagnose and see if there is an opportunity to work with someone, because it may not be, or it may not be the right time. So once we get through that discovery call, there's usually another sales call where we deep dive a little bit further into the problem that the client has identified. And with that, comes our proposal, right? I want to get instantly to the point and ask them, hey, is this work that you would like help with? If so, I can get a proposal out to you, in 2 days max, 3 days max. After that, after sending the proposal, obviously we agree on scope. And this is a partnership, right? The client is coming along with us the whole time through this process. It's not one-sided because I need your buy-in 100%. The objective is to meet their objectives, right? What are your objectives in doing this? Why are we doing this, right? I don't want to ever come in and waste my time or waste your time if the organization isn't willing to change. As I mentioned earlier, that was one of the reasons why I left corporate America, because I was working at organizations that said they wanted to change and adopt this continuous improvement culture, but that wasn't the case. So for us is walk the walk and, talk the talk. And that's our typical sales, lead gen into sales process that we follow.
So I guess a lot of it comes down to education when it comes to your marketing, right? Because it's like, hey, there is all the talking around this and like culture and change and making sure it works. And there is actually living it day to day and doing it and making sure that it's not, just greenwashing, the way I think about it, but actual efforts to move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach this? I think that's a question worth for the sales cycle, but also the marketing aspect of things. Like, how do you make sure that whilst you run your business and onboard your clients and help your existing clients, you make sure you educate them before, during, and after the engagements as well, to make sure that this is aligned with what you guys have for mission?
Yeah, you're right. It is an education component. I didn't realize that when I first started. I thought everyone, I thought they knew what they wanted, right? Sometimes they know what they want, but they don't know what it is that they need, right? They have a hard time articulating it. So we've realized over the year that it's our job to be that guide and help them through that. Being that guide may be coaching at some point. It may be the educating at some point. It may be laying down the law at some point. I once had a VP, we went live with a new system, and it was like we all were supposed to really report in at 6:00 in the morning at the warehouse. Well, I came in that day at 6:30 because I think I had something going. I don't know. I came in at 6:30, and as soon as I got there, he's like, well, where were you? I needed somebody to manage me. And I'm like, seriously? Like, so sometimes it is that like they just want the support and accountability. So even though we're consultants, I feel like you're somewhat of a chameleon every day because you have to adopt with what's going on with your clients sometimes, but still keep the focus on the delivery of why we are there and meeting their objectives, right? Understanding what good looks like, helping them be able to picture what that looks like at the finish line, as well as constantly creating that value so they know, okay, I've had a great taste of what this can feel like over the other side. What if we 2x this, 5x what we're doing, to really paint that picture in their mind. Like I said, their end goal is to not have a project flop. So while I'm there, that is my ultimate objective, is to help them get through the finish line and wave the flag that, hey, we're done. This is signed up and wrapped up with a bow.
Talk to me about retention, Jennifer. I mean, I suspect when you run a team of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 employees, it's not just about business development. It's also about retention of your existing clients, making sure that you keep on bringing value. When I was a consultant myself, the stat that was going around often is finding a new client is oftentimes 7 times more expensive than keeping an existing one and doing more for them. So how do you go about that? How do you go about, retaining customers, making the next engagements and then the next one, all whilst, of course, providing value to the client?
Yeah, something we started doing recently, because you're right. We realized over time, like, hey, it's costing us more to go find new clients. So how do we increase the breadth of where we are existing already with the client? Is there another department that you can think of that are have similar challenges than what you face, that you can make an intro to us, to this VP and this whole other business unit? So that's what I mean by the breadth. Like, how do we expand with that client that we've already done work for? They've already seen our value, they've received the value, and they're more than happy to make an introduction when it comes to having us, in their circle of influence. Also, another thing that we've been doing is with my team, just training them constantly on, no stone unturned, right? Even if they're out, like I said, everything is marketing. So even if you're having conversations with folks and there's certain trigger words that we listen for, to get an appointment on our schedule, not try to solve the problem right then and there, but hey, we have some ideas on what we think could possibly help you guys. If you don't mind us sharing that with you, do you mind if we have a quick call next Tuesday? So being very direct is when it comes to that, not being afraid. I know everyone's not great at being client facing, and I wasn't either, because I was a behind the scenes ops girl. So now that I'm more, in the business development and client facing, I had to overcome that to be able to continue the growth of the firm. But I realized, like, my team, not everyone's great, with that. So coming up with different ways that, I can constantly train when it comes to messaging, or, getting over that fear of being in front of people and at networking events, or asking the client for introductions somewhere else in the organization.
Amen to that. A bit of a curveball question for you, Jennifer. What's your number one challenge right now? What's the one nut that you guys are trying to crack that, once you crack, you're going to take the whole business to the next level? What would that be for you?
I think it's systematizing our marketing. Like I said, I'm still getting comfortable with it myself and realizing that everything we do is marketing. So really trying to systematize that. I don't want to move away from our relationship driven type of processes that we've developed over the years. But I do want to implement a little bit more of predictable lead generation while still being ourselves, by still being true of who the MJW Group is. And I'm not sure what that looks like right now. I know I spent a lot of time with the VPs and C-suite, so I know they're not scrolling on LinkedIn. They're not, looking at things from a digital marketing standpoint that have been introduced in the last 20 something years. That's still new to them, right? They're still kind of in the older ways of how we used to market before digital marketing had a footprint. So just figuring out ways to kind of match that, because we need to be more productive, obviously, and optimize our marketing efforts, but I can't spend, the majority of my day, developing the relationship either. So trying to find that happy medium, if that makes sense.
Thanks a lot for breaking this up, Jennifer, because I think that's something that a lot of consulting firm, and by the way, it's a good challenge to have, right? It means like there is growth in the pipeline, and the question becomes not how do we grow at all costs, but how do we grow in a sustainable manner that represents our brands, that doesn't dilute ourselves. Right. I like it a lot, and I think that's a problem that more consultants have than we think they do. And in the age of AI, this is key. Like, this is the one thing that we need to solve for. Information is a commodity now. So how do we make sure that our voice is out there, our value is out there, but we can also help our industry, help our ICPs? One thing that you mentioned that I think is ultra valuable is understanding where your customer hangs out. And once you know that, how do you get their attention the right way? I mean, I would argue that they are probably on LinkedIn, but it's how do you get their attention on LinkedIn when everybody is just regurgitating content from ChatGPT? That's the real challenge. But yeah, it's an interesting one. If you find the answer to this question, please let us know. And happy to have a second chat on the show. Jennifer White, ladies and gentlemen. Jennifer, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
I'm always on LinkedIn, Jennifer White.
Ironically. So LinkedIn, we'll put the link in the description, the website as well. I imagine the MJW Group, right?
Yes, the MJWGRP.com. Yep.
MJW. We'll put all the links in the description. I can say one thing for sure, Jennifer, is that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview. Me, I just added you. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time. How